So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Project Management Vice President Mark Warren for Workload Automation. Mark?
Yeah. And they put the wrong one up again anyway. Good afternoon. I hope everybody's enjoying CA World. Jeff English is going to co-host with me here from Verizon, and I'd like to thank him as well for spending time with us today. So, a little bit what we're going to talk about is the agenda for today will be the curve, and then we'll talk about a little bit about how Verizon's using automation to manage the mainframe environment and the journey and the process it took for them to get there. So let's get started here and talk about the curve. So the automation maturity curve, we all understand that many moons ago we learned it was procedure driven. So that, and the fact that single steps, reactive, single platforms and so forth is how we were managing. Static workload was in place, along with, there was no logical relationships. They were all just individual, siloed and so forth. Then we took the next step and became a rule and event-based type system. So that when we look at it and we say it's the sense of prioritize to respond. So event management then takes the step and says, how do we do workflows? How do we link elements one to the other, right? This took a period of time. Then we look and we say, how do I do dynamic if-then-else type processing within the automation workload? Or in this case, as well as automation. So, relationships to sequencing, and I think some are good at that. I think everybody's still trying to understand the relationships. Exception-based management. I think every customer I speak with across the globe has explained to me they do not manage everyday policies. They manage the exceptions. So when exceptions are coming in, how do we handle those processes? What actions do I need to take? And each day there's new actions that come in or new rules that are needed to be written or new actions to be taken based upon an event that has taken place. And it's generally, again, an exception event. Whether that be monitoring DB2 or batch or workflow, it doesn't matter. It's something on that system that you're managing and an exception took place. It may be CSA, maybe ECSA. It could be anything that's coming across the syslog. You have to identify and you have to take an action for. And then, how do I integrate across the environment? So, the system integration is very tough because, again, I take DB2, I take CICS, I take the ops logs, I take all this information. How do I correlate that? How do I come up with the right responses? Is it CPU processing? What process do I need to, what's my end result that I'm looking for? And I think that a lot of companies are at that point today. Now, they want to get to measure, predict, and analyze. And so when we start talking about SLAs and advanced analytics, I'm not sure that we all understand today the outlying drivers for this. So how do I predict to start with, and how do I take the information? Think of ops log or syslog as being big data. Why can I not take that into a big data environment, analyze it, and see if there's any rules or predictiveness that I can come out with? CA's looking at that. We're trying to understand that. We want customer feedback so we can get to that point of view. The dynamic infrastructure. How many times does an LPAR come up and down? You may add an LPAR to a Sysplex this week. Next week, you may take it away. I hear some of the retail stores added only during prime time during the holiday seasons. Black Fridays as an example. A lot of horsepower is thrown. So all of these are constantly in flux. Cross-enterprise. How do I handle messages that I may want to route to other systems or for automation on the mainframe to receive to take an action? What are the rules? What are the procedures? What's in place today that will do this for you? And then I think the business service orchestration to it all. How do I not impact the business, right? The business is telling us day in, day out, we have to do more, we have to do less, but we also have to deliver to the business quicker. And we have to be responsive to the business. How do I do that with automation today? It's very difficult. And then systems applications life cycle. So the whole system life cycle, the desired state, end state, the policies, and so forth that are all associated with that. So when I speak with customers, and Verizon, Jeff will tell you as well, where do you think you're at in this curve, right? And most people think, oh, well, I'm really policy, but when I really stop and think about it, I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm in the middle between rule and event and policy driven. The reason being, how many had, again, the SLA and advanced analytics is the toughest part. I think that as a whole, that we need to help each other in this space because we need to design an engine that will allow you to be predictive. So let's talk about this and a little bit deeper here. And we're going into polling, as Stefan pointed out. We're going to talk a little bit about the polling questions, right? So, what statement would best describe your organization? Is it procedure-driven and rule-based? Or is it rule and event-based? Or somewhere between rule and event, policy-driven, and none of the above. We're still waiting to see where the market's going. And I'll give you a few minutes here to respond to this. Okay, let's see what the results were with this. Yeah, so somewhere between procedure and rule event based, right? 66% of you state that you're somewhere in there, and some are even almost too policy driven. Again, policy driven is where we all want to get to. And when you get to the point that you can allow for that to take place, then your events are automated. All of it's going to be automated. When a policy gets set in place, we understand what the rules are with that. So let's move on to the next. And it went backwards, of course. All right, so Jeff, let's talk a little bit about how Verizon handles their environment. And if you could, just give everybody kind of a general idea of what you do at Verizon and how the environment's configured.
Thanks a lot, Mark. One of my responsibilities is in automation. We use Ops and VS. And I'd like to give you a little background on where Verizon is. When Mark first came to me with this question, I thought, we're as good as you can get with automation. On a scale of 1 to 10, we've got to be at least an 11. And let me tell you why. Before we became Verizon, we were two companies. We were GTE and Bell Atlantic. All right? And GTE had an automation culture of absolute just ad hoc automation. If you needed some automation done, there was one guy who did it. You would go to him, or even worse, if you felt comfortable enough, you would go in and do it yourself. So people use automation for everything. If you needed a reminder to do your timesheet that week, put in automation. So automation was not really taken as seriously as it needed to be. Now, Bell Atlantic, they had an entire automation team that they were forming. And their reason for doing that is because in their system, they had, Bell Atlantic actually was two companies, NYNEX and Bell Atlantic, and they had multiple sites, and each site would have 12 operators per shift. All right, and these sites were in high-demand job market areas. So an operator would come in, we would teach them how to be an operator, and then they would discover they can go across the street, not have to worry about 100 LPARs, and get paid more money. So the talent bleed became a real issue. So what we decided to do with our automation was we actually created an ISPF panel for automation, and we consolidated everything into that. The operator would get an alert to that panel, so they wouldn't have to watch 100 different consoles. That alert would show them not only what the problem was, but it would give them recommendations on what to do. It would let them know you should contact support immediately, or here's an investigation you could actually do. Some people were kind of upset about that because they thought we were dumbing down the operators, but what we found was that if you're in an environment where you're constantly getting console alerts and you're afraid of missing something, you don't have time to do any investigation. With this, we actually gave them the tools to investigate, or in some cases, they could actually call the support group and investigate with the support group. So we built this really complex system for our operators, and today we can monitor every L part in Verizon with 2 people per shift. One person can be in one location, the other can back them up from another location. And so when I looked at that, when I look at our automation procedures and our coding guidelines, we have the ability to automate things not only that happen, but we can automate things that don't happen. We can automate messages we don't get. All of our code is completely standardized, and it follows a very strict methodology. There can be an LPAR I haven't logged on to all year. If there's an automation problem there, I can look at that and know exactly where to go, what to do. So I felt that we were as good as you can get when it came to automation maturity. But when I looked at that graph, the thing that stuck out to me that I think we're still missing is the business analytics. If a DB2 or a CICS is having an issue, what's the business impact? Is that an application that keeps track of a repairman's driving schedule, or is it a major billing application? That kind of business impact is really the next level of automation that we need to be able to do to really present that to our business leaders.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Let's talk about the journey. So, where's the maturity curve? You explained that to us, and I appreciate that. What's the primary goal?
Well, right now, our primary goal, of course, is uptime, but our next goal is to bring that kind of business analytics to the environment. When something happens on the mainframe environment, we want to be able to say, here's the real business impact. That way we can streamline not only our response, but what we do in the future to alleviate that.
But realistically, like you said, you're probably 11 on the 1 to 10 scale, right?
Right.
But really, with analytics missing and so forth, what's your curve to get there? How do you plan on taking that move to the next step?
Well, right now, we're actually doing the work of trying to merge the systems environment with the application environment. And in Verizon, it was very kind of siloed. The systems people worked on keeping the system up, and the applications people, they built the applications. And while there was an effort between us, it wasn't always there. So a lot of times there may be an application, and we don't know who to go to for that application. We don't know who the primary contact is. So that is our big effort, trying to find out all these orphan applications and bring them into the fold so that we can identify what they're tied to, and then we can then report that with our tool.
So it really sounds like DevOps is really coming together,
Yes.
and the fact that development and operations is working together closer and closer so that they can deliver this curve.
Yes, exactly
Okay.
right.
What are the challenges?
Well, the biggest challenge is, like I said, is actually finding some of these applications. There are applications out there that are running, and we just don't know who they are or what they're doing. So sometimes we just have to become investigators and try to find them out. Sometimes the best way to do it is to incur an outage and see who complains. But that really is the challenge. Also, getting buy-in. It's not always easy to tell. Because right now, I'll give you an example, we're actually merging IT with wireless. Verizon was a major stakeholder in Verizon Wireless. We weren't the whole owner. Last year, we purchased the remaining shares from Vodafone, so now we own Verizon Wireless, and we're merging together. And another big, I won't call it a fight, but another big issue is trying to get people to buy in to having one IT methodology. I always tell people the best way to increase your costs is to have divergent methodologies. So one of the things that people resist is that automation, we really try to drive that. We really try to drive oneness. And in some environments, having automation actually drive a business decision feels like the tail wagging the dog. But if you think about it, we are the primary point to which operations and a lot of people actually see the mainframe. So it puts us in the ideal position to do that.
Yeah, and realistically, talking with some of the other financial institutions across the globe, what they're really saying is we're buying more, we're merging more, we're
Right.
trying to reduce our costs, so we're trying to standardize on one piece of automation and so forth. And the challenge is getting everybody just to say, okay, we're going to go down this path and we're going to take this path. And it seems like unless they have management buy-in, that doesn't happen.
Exactly. Everyone wants to keep their particular culture and their particular ideals. People, if you give them the choice, they want to say, well, I'll work on these systems, and you'll work on those systems, and we'll never talk to each other, even though we're doing the exact same job. And there's real business value in working together and having the same methodology. If one person encounters a problem, the other side might want to be interested and might need to know that. So merging together is something we've really have gotten good at. We've done it dozens of times in the past decade. We've merged with 5 different companies. We have commercial clients, and we've had to take our methodologies and put it on their system. So that's one thing that we have really gotten good with.
So how are you able to overcome these? I mean, is it management? Is it the solutions? Is it both? Or is it just simple, the groups agreeing we have to work together?
Well, money is the key. It's the root of all innovation. Whenever there's a conflict, whenever someone is in the way, it's always better to be able to show, hey, if we go this route, we can save this amount of money. We're able to run 70 LPARs with 2 people doing it this way. If you're only running 20 LPARs and it takes you 30 people, the money will make the argument for you if you could do that.
Awesome. What advice would you offer other companies?
Well, first and foremost, like I said, don't get so caught up in the technical aspect. Always keep your money with you. You know, you wouldn't leave your wallet someplace. So when you're making a decision about where to go technically, always make your business case. Always try to think of how you can sell it to someone who actually has to think about money for a living. That's really important. Another thing is standardization and having a policy. I'm not the kind of person who likes to read instruction manuals. I don't like to follow, guidelines, but I really bought into it when it comes to automation. Whenever there's an automation problem and I have to get on a call, or whenever something weird happens and people automatically assume, well, automation must have done that. Because we have standards and procedures and we document everything and we have a really good accounting system within automation, I'm able to go through and say with 100% confidence, this is what automation is doing. Either I can assist, help find the root cause, or I can have a place to defend myself before I go and help other people find the root cause of the issue.
Okay. So, to wrap this up in a few words here, and really, the automation has grown. The automation curve's huge. That presents the opportunities to the business, but at the same time, you have some risk that you're assuming.
Yes.
So the findings, there's no right or wrong answer, okay? And automation's automation. So the way that you may see to do it versus the way I may see to do it, it's just 2 different ways, but it accomplishes the same goal. If an organization wants to move up in the curve, an investment's going to be required, is what I hear.
Yes, that's why I always stress follow the money, or at least let the money go before you. If you're going to head in the direction, make sure that you can prove to someone the value of it, and that'll clear a lot of obstacles.
So I guess the real question is, with Verizon meeting that challenge today, as all of you sit out there and listen to us today, where do you want to be? What is your ultimate goal? Where do you want to go with automation? How do you want to get there? And where do you want to be tomorrow? So with that said, there are some additional sessions that I would highly recommend that you attend, and it's the transformation of IT management and applications today at 3:30, the digital economy tomorrow at 11, and automation strategy mature enough for the application economy. Highly recommend this one tomorrow at 2:45. And then you can also go to the booth and see us deliver the IT services faster via automation. Any questions? Anybody have any questions? Jeff and I will be glad to answer them as soon as we get off stage. No problems. So thank you.
All right, thank you very
Appreciate
much.
your time. Thank you very much.